And how many times have we heard people say a boat is like a hole that you just throw money into? I'm going to tell you, I totally disagree with that.
So I guess the first question is, why should someone restore a boat?
There are some great classic used fiberglass sailboats out there. You can really get a great deal on a boat, get a lot of use out of it, and learn a lot of stuff in the process. But you have to kind of have a plan going into it, and you've got to know a couple things. And you'd be willing to learn a couple things to undertake this. Not everybody can afford to go buy a $100,000 sailboat. A lot of times folks have $100,000 sailboats and they want to fix something on it. They feel like they ought to be able to do something themselves. And their only option is to what? Go to the boatyard and pay somebody $75 an hour to do something that you might be capable of doing yourself if you have some skills or you want to develop the skills. With just a little bit of knowledge, you can really get a very good understanding of what you might be capable of doing, what you want to undertake, what you don't want to undertake.
What is Motor City Boat Werks?
I'm not a professional. I'm just a regular guy, and I was never a boat restoration professional or anything like that. I had a day job that I did for 30 years. I retired in 2022, but when I had my day job, my hobby was working on old boats, in particular sailboats. I lived on a number of boats, restored a number of sailboats. I was always kind of doing that on my spare time. That was my thing. So when I retired, I was not really happy with the content and what was available on YouTube insofar as boat restoration, sailboat restoration, this type of information. And I thought, man, I think that I can do a better job. And I think there's a whole kind of gambit of nuances and kind of tips and tricks. And like a lot of people, you probably watch YouTube, see a lot of channels, you see somebody doing something, you go, oh man, what are they doing? That's crazy. No one ever shows you like what you should be doing. And no one ever shows you like some alternative ways that you might do some things if you're on a limited budget, because let's face it, this is all about time and money and effort. And that's what I talk about on the YouTube channel. It's not reality TV. I consider it how to. I show you how to do some of these projects. And I like to show people from beginning to the end, to the moment of completion. A lot of these projects take a lot of steps. So I show you from the very beginning, the concept all the way to, the end. Boom, here's a moment of completion and the project's done. You could judge for yourself whether it turned out well or, it needs something more to it. And you can see how projects build upon each other. You learn how to do this, and then you're able to do that. And then once you can do a couple things, wow, you might be able to attempt something else. I kind of show that in my shop, in my boat shop. It's not a real shop. It's a hobby shop. I built it for myself. I work on only my boats. I don't have any customers. I'm not beholden to anyone. What are your options that you have, right? You could pay a yard, top dollar, the boatyard to fix your boat, pay a professional. You might attempt something on your own. You might have want to try and do it on a little bit of a budget, right? And try and see what you can do, the best you can do. And that's what I try to show you. This is what you can hope to do. These are the things that you definitely shouldn't do. These projects are so big, they're so involved, they take so long, there's so many details involved that on occasion, I like to get away from the boat works and I like to go out. What I say is in search of boat motivation, right? Stories about interesting boats I've always wanted to own, or people who have a particular life or lifestyle with certain types of boats and things. And my travels, my international travel has taken me around the world, more than a dozen different countries, doing stories on unusual boats, unusual people building boats and kind of what's going on everywhere from India to Ireland, Spain, and now Norway to show interesting things that you've probably never seen on an amateur boat building or boat restoration channel. What does it take to do some of this? That's what I try to show on my channel. You'll see me do the projects. I'm very honest about what works and what doesn't work, what the popular ideas are. Oh, you should do things this way. Let me tell you, that doesn't really work. And I'll show you why. I'll even try it sometimes. You'll see me fail right before your eyes. A number of different kind of weird projects that I've been doing on different boats.
What I want to know is a boat really a hole in the water?
I am very big on the process and the planning of how you go about doing projects. A lot of people will buy a classic sailboat and they want to restore it up. They dream of sailing here and there. And they buy a derelict sailboat and they don't have a plan. They don't know where they're going to keep it. They don't have a place to keep it. They don't know how much it's going to cost to fix it. How many times have we heard people say a boat is like a hole that you just throw money into? I'm going to tell you, I totally disagree with that. A boat is no different than a car or an airplane or a house that you might restore or repair or work on. These things have fixed costs. The problem is that most people don't know. How much does it cost to fix a spongy deck on a sailboat? How much time does it take to do something like this? What kind of skills do you have to do this sort of thing? Well, you know how much it costs to remodel a bathroom, right? There's all kinds of HGTV home restoration channels. There's even car restoration channels. So you have an idea what it takes to do those projects. But how is it that we don't know how much it takes to remodel or refit the bathroom on a 30-foot boat? Why is that? What's the secret? The answer is there is no secret. It's just that it's a very, very tiny kind of a niche hobby, and it hasn't been covered before. And frankly, the professionals, they don't want you to know what it takes to do some of these projects, because they would lose probably some of their easier jobs that they might get away with charging you $75 an hour to do.
So, what boats are you currently working on?
This boat is a 27-foot diesel pocket trawler. It's called an Albin 27 family cruiser. I acquired it in August 2014. I've been working on it pretty steady, pretty nonstop since then, with the exception of a brief period of time that I was overseas. But since 2022, when I retired, I've been working on it full time. Now, this is not the only project I have going on inside my boat works. I have some other small sailboats and different small projects like that I do, some dinghy projects. But generally speaking, the big trawler is the one that I'm working on right now. It's a bare hull. I stripped it down to a bare hull, and I'm putting it back together, kind of making it better than it ever was. It's kind of customized and got all the bells and whistles, and it's going to be sexy.
Don't you need to be a professional to do this?
There are people who are very, very good at what they do professionally, right? There are fiberglass guys who really, and gals who really know their business, and far be it from me to try and take anything away from that. I am here to just kind of lend a voice to how a competent amateur might go about doing some of these projects, or whether they should even undertake them in the first place. Look, you're always learning. I am definitely not an expert. I say that all the time. I am not an expert. I'm not a professional. I am just a competent amateur. There are projects that I will not undertake. I will hire somebody to do it. While I could probably learn to tear down a diesel engine and put it back together, why would I? I need something reliable. So I'm probably going to pay somebody who's an expert at doing that. They do that professionally, because there's many other things that I don't have to be a diesel mechanic to work on. You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of other projects that little bit of knowledge, little bit of proper tools, and some patience and elbow grease, you can get a couple projects done.
All right. So what comes first?
I always ask people up front, what's your goal? What is it you want to achieve? And this might be a variety of things. If they already have a boat that they want to restore, I will ask them, like, what do you want to do? What's the end goal? Are you looking to restore your boat so that it's a concourse piece, museum piece that, really shouldn't be touched? It should be somewhere in a museum, and you just look at it like a painting? Or do you want something that you can use every day? It might have a couple dings here and there, and it'll get worn and used, right? Daily. But you need it to be reliable. You need it to be comfortable. It's no different than a classic car, a classic motorcycle, or an airplane. You got a classic car. You want to restore it. Well, what do you want? You want to turn it into a museum piece that's only going to sit somewhere and never be touched? Or do you want it to be a daily runner? You want to be able to drive it to the grocery store? You want to drive it across country? You want to just take it out on parade day? Well, what's the goal that you want to do? You'll forget that once you restore this thing, make it amazing, it may have cost so much money, time, and effort to get to that point. that you don't want to drive it anywhere. You don't want to risk anything happening to it because let's face it, when you use things, they break. Even your daily car, daily driver car, modern car, they break. They break down. You drive them, they wear out. Same kind of thing with boats. That's my thought process. It served me well for all these years. Once you answer that question, right? What do you want to do? What's the plan? It will lead itself to kind of all the other things. Well, how much money do you want to spend, right? If you want a concourse restoration on your classic vintage sailboat, guess what? It's going to be very, very expensive and probably require some very special skill sets to get a level of finish, that will be acceptable for that type of museum quality. If you want a daily runner, well, now you're focusing on some other things and you've already kind of acknowledged that you'd rather spend the money on making something reliable, perhaps than making it look so beautiful that you don't want to touch it or damage it.
Well, how do I know if I should try this?
There's some other basic questions that you need to answer also. How much time do you have to do this type of project? These projects, they take time, they take money, and they take effort, sometimes referred to as commitment. And you have to have a reserve of those 3-4 things in order to be able to undertake one of these projects. Otherwise, you will spend a lot of resources, time, money, effort, and you won't get anything in the end because you'll ultimately fail. So I ask people up front, do you have time to do this? And I ask them, do you have money to do this? Many people get lured by the prospect of a free boat or a giant big boat that someone's giving away at an unbelievable price. And they say, wow, this is amazing. I can almost get it free. But I try to point out, and I have episodes on my channel where I talk about, there's some costs, there's hidden costs to all this kind of stuff that you may not realize that the owner who's trying to give it away, well, they already know this. They probably don't know these things. You got to have some money to be able to do this. And then one of the most important questions that I ask people is, do you have a place to work on this boat? By place, I mean a place that you effectively control, is really not costing you anything. You're able to kind of work on it and do certain things. There are some marinas that you're not allowed to work on your own boat. And there are marinas, of course, that you might work in their yard and they'll let you do it yourself, but you're going to pay for the pleasure of doing that. And it will cost you money, which ultimately becomes like this constant drain on your resources. I'll give you a great example. You'll have a 45-foot catamaran. It's almost free. You're going to work on this thing and rebuild it. But guess what? It costs you $600 a month just to work on it in someone's junky boatyard, do it yourself. $600 is... Trust me, this project will be multiple years. Before you know it, you just spent $20,000 or more. Storage fees, working in someone's yard. I ask these very fundamental questions. That doesn't mean you have to have amazing boat works like I do, a boat shop that you can do your own thing and all this kind of stuff. It just means you have to consider this ahead of time. I've restored boats in an apartment parking lot. I have restored boats in my backyard, no matter what size the house was. Right. I've restored boats in a boatyard or storage lot that was, for all intents and purposes, almost free. It was so cheap, and I was allowed to work there that, it just financially made sense. We're talking, less than $100 a month. I could work on it there. These are things that someone has to think about before they ever get to what I call the assessment of the boat. People will pay a surveyor to survey the boat.
What's an assessment?
We go through the boat and we take a look at it, and we're looking for a couple of fundamental things. What's the condition of the hull? What's the condition of the deck? What's the condition of the big ticket items that are associated with the boat? On a sailboat, that's going to be the sails and the mast and the rigging. On a powerboat or a power vessel, it's going to be the engine, straight up. The most expensive things that you may have to either fix or replace. And then I like to ask people, is the boat pretty much complete? And if it is complete, most of the equipment's there, but what's the condition of that equipment?
Do you ever help people building their own boats?
I have had a lot of requests for people. They want some kind of step-by-step guidance doing some more advanced projects, or they want to get an idea, based on my experience, how they might go about a large boat restoration project, like the 27-foot pocket trawler behind me, or maybe a 30-foot sailboat, thing like that. And which I've restored. I wrote a book about it. And they want to know, they want to know what I know from having gone through that process, over a number of years. And so I do offer a consulting service for people who are interested in that. You can find it on my website.
But why do I need a consultant?
What I can tell you is, what it takes to restore a boat project, from the simplest trailerable sailboat to a large pocket trawler that, needs a travel lift to be moved around. What does it take to do some of these projects? Things that regular people probably need to know if they're going to be trying to restore an old boat. One of the things I do is I will do a pre-purchase consultation with somebody. Say, for example, you're thinking about buying an old sailboat. You found this amazing sailboat in a boatyard. You're getting a great deal on it. It's going to be a lot of work to restore it, but you're a handy, right? I'm not a professional. I don't necessarily do this for a living, but I have been doing it for 30 some years, and I have learned a lot of things. And I'll be very frank about whether or not I would undertake such a project or do something like that. And I even tell people, before we even consider doing a consulting or whatever, contact me by email, explain what you want to do. And I'll tell you straight up front whether it's something that I do can help you or not. I do it for folks who have a project that they want to restore, or they want to get a project that they're going to restore. There's a skill set you got to have, and there's some lessons you got to learn. If you don't learn those lessons, you may spend a lot of money. You might hurt yourself. You might spend a lot of effort and have a lot of heartbreak. But if you follow the rules and you kind of stay aware of what you got to know, and you kind of develop your skills, you'll have a very successful time, like I have, restoring a number of boats and getting some use out of them. It's a fun hobby. So that's why I created the YouTube channel. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out all my episodes on my channel. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Stay motivated.